Given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Well, happy Saturday afternoon. Carl Rominger here, coming at you live, 540-0580. You want to talk about the law? You want to get your legal questions answered? You can do it here. What do we have to talk about here? Well, let's see. In the news, North Carolina judge vacates death penalty under racial justice law. North Carolina is the only state that passed a law that said that judges can look at death penalty cases. It's called the North Carolina Racial Justice Act, and determine if there was racial bias in the case and overturn the death penalties in those. I don't think it automatically lets the person out of jail. But I think that one of the first big rulings came out in it, and in a 167-page opinion, the judge found that prosecutors had systematically over the years excluded black jurors when there were black defendants. I don't think this surprises anyone. The defense bar has long accused prosecutors of striking jurors who might otherwise be fair. And that's not always true of all prosecutors, but there's certainly an argument. There's also a theory, though, that sometimes people of the same racial background are actually harder on a defendant than not. So there's a lot of countervailing theories there, but it's interesting. I'm going to actually read that 167-page opinion and maybe get back to you on it next week because that just came out. Again, we're still monitoring the Supreme Court, waiting for a health care decision. We don't know when that will happen. The Supreme Court will go into court one morning and announce a decision, and they will usually read some of it from the bench, if not all of it from the bench. So when the health care law is decided, I think that'll be big news. But I don't expect it for a few more months. But we really only have till July. So if you think about it, folks, you got May and June, right? So probably within the next 60 days, but any time within the next 60 days, we'll have a decision on the health care law. So keep yourself tuned to that. That's going to be huge, whichever way it goes. And again, I'm predicting that if they uphold the law, there's a strong chance they won't based on the oral arguments and what we think. But if they uphold the law, I think the surprise vote is going to be Justice Roberts. But that's just me thinking out loud. But if I'm right, I want some credit when it happens. And if I'm wrong, we won't ever mention it again. 540-0580. If you have a personal injury case, if you were in an auto accident, motorcycle accident, explosion, you have a divorce case you want to talk about, we will be happy to answer your questions here on the air. I also want to remind you that you can get on our Facebook page. We've got the Rominger and Associates Facebook page and then my personal one, Carl Rominger. Shane does a good job of keeping things interesting on the Rominger and Associates page. And I also put some exclusive content up from time to time on the Rominger and Associates. I also want to let you know, in my own practice, we just got a case accepted to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. Drew Deo and I have been working on this for a couple years now. Young lady got a DUI a number of years ago, and we challenged at trial the admission of the breath test results, saying that they were not admissible because they needed to bring in certificates as prerequisites to get it in, but they needed to bring in the person who produced those certificates under the Sixth Amendment. The trial judge said no. The Superior Court, I think, laughed at us, but the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has agreed to take the case up, so I'll keep you posted on that. But it's kind of a big deal. They don't take too many, so it's only a second one we've gotten into the Supreme Court so far. And I'm very proud of Drew. I had him argue it at the Superior Court and brief it. But I'm also happy with myself because I picked the issue. Fred, you're on with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl.
Yeah, what's going on?
I got a business law question. It's a two-part question.
All right.
The first part being is we offer lawn service to customers, and if they don't pay, and we're talking like small amounts, like, $100 at a time, what could you do to pursue that?
Well, you can sue them in front of the district justice, or district judge, rather, as they changed the name a couple years ago. There was a theory that the Supreme Court justices didn't like the fact that the minor judiciary were also justices, so they became judges. But so we need to call them district judges now. Long story short, it's hard to do because it's such a small amount of money. You do get back your filing fee and the cost of service if that's applicable to the case if you win. And, of course, you still have to collect the judgment. the other thing, I mean, just from a business standpoint, maybe if you have somebody who doesn't pay you one time, I guess obviously you don't do any more work for them until they pay you.
Yeah.
And then maybe put them on a pay-as-you-go, pay ahead, or put a deposit down. That's another idea you could do. I don't know. Would you say it's $100? Maybe if you get the person to put down a security deposit of $100, and that way when they miss a payment, you're covered. But that's just a business solution, not a legal solution.
Okay. And then the second part of the question is I've talked to other lawn care providers, and we all sort of, within our own groups, have experience with certain customers, certain addresses where they don't pay, or they'll pay once and then they don't pay again, stuff like that.
Right.
Legally, can you do like a website and put these people's addresses and names on a website and not get in trouble for that?
Under the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, I believe you cannot publicize that information.
Okay.
In terms of internally keeping track of it, I guess, I've heard the same thing in the fuel oil business, too. Everybody kind of knows the same customers.
Okay. So, like, if you set it up so that maybe just other lawn care...
here's the answer on this one. I would want to do some research on it. I would be very remiss to answer that, because my general perception, and I always joke about this, is that a lot of Chinese restaurants, they like to stick the bounce checks up on the bulletin board behind the cash register. And that's clearly a violation of the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act. I don't know what the effect would be if you just share the names internally amongst people in the industry, but that's got to get into the credit reporting laws for all intents and purposes, because then you're acting as a credit reporting agency, and you're probably going to be regulated.
Okay.
So, now, if three guys in the lawn care industry are all drinking beer behind the shed and they happen to swap some addresses, I'm not sure anybody's going to be litigated federally, but I certainly wouldn't put them on a website.
Okay.
All right?
All right, sounds good.
All right, brother.
All right, thank you.
540-0580. I'm just guessing they all drink beer. I mean, maybe there's some teetotalers in that business. I don't know. There's like one in the whole law business. Mike, you're on the air.
Yes. Hi, Carl. Thank you for taking my call. This is a boyfriend-girlfriend kind of thing. Somebody moves into an apartment with the other person. There is no marital ties. They're not on the lease.
Right.
That person later leaves behind goods, and now is playing the game of not coming back after saying they're going to come back several times.
To pick up the items.
How long do we have to maintain these items before I can put them on the street?
This is the famous question. At what point does the property really become abandoned and the person give up their rights in it? And the short answer is there's no law on this. And what I mean is there's no magic number, there's no magic time. I usually suggest putting in writing to somebody, here's the items, and I'm going to give you X number of days, and then I'm going to put them in the storage shed, or I'm going to put them in the basement, or I'm going to put them out on the curb. But if you don't come pick them up, it's at your own risk. Now, in a landlord-tenant situation, I usually recommend that the landlord simply lock them up in the basement of the property, or put them in a storage shed and pay the first month on it and tell them here's where they are, but you're gonna have to pay me the first month's rent, and after that it's yours. Of course, the storage people don't like that, and they'll probably get mad at me for saying that, because that tends to tie up things for them for those fun picker auctions.
Sure does.
But
would a text message count?
Yeah, text message is pretty good. I mean, in this day and age, right? It's as good as, probably better than mail.
Judge Judy does it, by God.
Yeah. So I mean, in this day and age, put it on our Facebook page. Hey, come get this stuff.
Okay.
But my point is, give them a reasonable period of time. The other thing is, what's the value of the items? And this is why I say this. If it's a $10,000 item, and I mean, it's probably not a $10,000, but just imagine this. Imagine it's some, valuable item. I think with a valuable item, a court later on would want to see more effort to make sure that they truly abandon it. With a flea-bitten old sofa that was probably worth $10 anyhow, the court's probably not going to hold you to a really strong effort, right?
Right. Okay.
And what's most important is, in the criminal law, in the criminal arena, what we worry about is your intent. And if your intent is to deprive the person of their property, right, that makes out a theft. But if you keep trying to say, pick it up, but I'm not going to store it forever, then it wasn't your intent to deprive them of their property, right?
correct.
And so that's the other way that you need to protect yourself is from a criminal allegation. I've seen a few times over the years where some young police officer new to the world of policing gets one of these phone calls, goes out and decides, well, it must be a theft because you stole her stuff. But most police officers with any experience go, and this is a civil matter, and we're not getting involved because this is a boyfriend-girlfriend dispute. So, but I like to have the letter because that clarifies later what your intent was.
Okay. What would you're an attorney? What would you call reasonable?
What would I call reasonable? I would say, well, how long has she been out?
This person has been out it's been a month.
Okay.
It's been going on for a month.
Of course, I keep saying she, but maybe it's not a she. But the point is, if they've been out for more than a month, then I think another 30 days is appropriate.
Okay.
All right?
All righty. Thank you.
Good luck. 540-0580. I'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, and I've got Dan Steele joining me live from Stoffers at Kissel Hill. How are you, Dan?
Hey, I'm doing great, Carl. Thank you very much for letting me be nosing into your program today. We're over here for the 80th anniversary. Stoffers at Kissel Hill has been around for 80 years. Yeah, they have been, and they've got a big celebration going on. You can register to win, by the way, a wagon load of winnings. The registration box is right next to our table. We're set up just as you come in the front door here at Stoffers at Kissel Hill in Mechanicsburg. The sale prices for all of the things are going on at all of the stores. Now, I'm only here till 2 o'clock, so if you want to come over and say hi, you got to do that pretty quick. But, hey, here's some reasons to come over pretty quick. How about, have you got the garden in yet? Tomatoes and peppers, 99 cents. Plant your own. Fresh potted herbs, $2.99 for a one-pint container. They've got spring perennials for $4.99 a quart. Rail planters, fast and easy way to garden tips, and thrillers, fillers, and spillers. I'll tell you what, they are loaded with stuff. Here's another great deal. Twin Oaks topsoil, 40-pound bag, 3 of them for $3.99. How do you beat that deal? That's super. Lots of great sale items going on. It's part of the 80th anniversary celebration. Again, stop by and say hi. We're at Stoffers of Kissel Hill in Mechanicsburg. It's Dan Steele on WHP 580. Now, more great legal advice.
Thank you, Dan. And by the way, just so you know, the last average frost date for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania is May 4th. However, based on the long-term weather forecast, I think we're fine to plant.
Yeah, let's go do it, man.
All right, man.
Great
Take
day,
care.
Big holes. Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, and by the way, do you know what the latest first frost date in Pennsylvania is, Shane, that I can find anywhere? It's Ridgeway, Pennsylvania, and their first frost date is June 7th. Okay, now think about that, and their frost in the fall is September 13th, which means if you live up there in Ridgeway, your growing season is from about June, right, to like mid-September. So you got to get the plants in late, and you got to get them out early. I don't think they can grow a lot of stuff up there.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Well, no, really, and these average frost dates are based obviously on historical record, but as we know, those are averages, so it could happen later than that, it could happen earlier than that. But think about that growing season. I mean, I'd love to have been a farmer in Ridgeway in like 1840, huh? Like, what kind of growing? What are you going to grow? I don't know. 540-0580. We'll get back to legal stuff here. Tom, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Hey, Tom.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
What's going on?
Hey, I had a question in regards to a loan I gave my neighbor. We wrote up a note and everything. It was 3 months into it. It was a 6-month term loan. It was supposed to be. That's what it was written as.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been 3 months. I haven't got a payment. My question was, I kind of have a feeling that he kind of intended on paying it back. And do I need to wait till the end of that loan in order to get the full amount if I take it to claims, or what's the best way to go about that?
So he's already breached the agreement, right?
Yes.
Once he breaches the agreement, theoretically, you can sue him for the full amount.
Okay.
So you can take it right to the district judge at this point. What I would do is give him a formal demand and say, you got 10 days to either – the way what's your neighbor, right? So at the end of the day, you could say, I'm just taking it to the judge, but I give him a 10-day demand that says bring it current and stay current, or pay off the full amount, or I'm going to take you to the district judge in 10 days. I give him 3 options.
Okay.
All right?
And is that, if I wait longer, is that something, does the interest, let's say the guy doesn't pay it back, I don't know if they put a lien on his house or what, but does that interest compound that was agreed upon that note? Does that compound until he pays it back, or does that stop?
Once you get a judgment, it becomes simple interest of 6% per year.
Okay.
All right?
Oh, okay. Thanks a lot.
All right, man.
Goodbye.
Yeah, this is the problem with loaning money to your neighbor, because when they don't pay you back, then you have a neighbor problem. Bill, you're on the air. Hey, Bill.
Yes. Hey, thank you for taking my call, Carl.
Not a problem.
This is a Fourth Amendment issue. I got a letter from the township saying that access to the inside of the dwelling must be available to ensure that all effluent and gray water from the dwelling is going to the septic system.
Right.
Now, isn't this against the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution?
Well, no, it's not, because they can get a warrant, but they can't come in without a warrant first. So you have the right to refuse them access, and then they can get an administrative search warrant in order to enforce township regulations.
So I'm out of luck.
You're out of luck. This was one in law school we talked about. Quite interestingly, right? If the government wants to get in and find my cocaine, they're going to need a search warrant, and they have to base it on probable cause based on a reasonable belief that there's cocaine present in the house, right? But when the government comes in and wants to do an administrative inspection to make sure you're in compliance with borough codes, etc., for whatever reason, they don't have to have an articulable suspicion that you are in violation. They just have to assert that they want to enforce their inspection rights under that law. So they don't have to have any evidence that you're in noncompliance in order to gain entry. So in one of those cases, a township went in without a warrant, and the court sort of said, well, what difference does it make? Because we have to give them a warrant anyhow, so it's harmless. And the Supreme Court of the United States said no. They still have to get the administrative search warrant. But there's really nothing to it except saying this is our law, and we want to enforce it. So the short answer is they're entitled to an administrative search warrant as a matter of law. Therefore, they're going to gain entry with the warrant. No sense having them break down your door in order to do that.
Oh, boy, that doesn't sound right.
Well, that's been the law of the United States for a long time now.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, now, hey, one other thing.
Yes.
In the state of Alaska, who has a slightly stronger right of privacy in their own homes, I'm not sure that the state would be able to enter under those circumstances, but we'd have to analyze the Alaskan Constitution. But they have a stronger right of privacy inside their dwelling than a Pennsylvanian does, for instance. But that's based on the strong additional protections of the state constitution. Now, one step farther, federal law enforcement agents in Alaska, however, right, would generally not be bound by the Alaskan Constitution in comparing out federal law. Anyhow, just a little side note.
Thank you. They get you any way they want, right?
Well, they get you coming, they get you going, and they get you on the way out, right?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, bye. 540-0580. David, thank you for being so patient. What's going on?
Hey, good afternoon, Carl. So my daughter had a second vehicle. She sold it in December of 2011.
Right.
Did the title transfer. But she kept the license plate thinking that she might buy another car. License plate's been sitting on a shelf in our house ever since. A couple of weeks ago, we got a letter from the city of Harrisburg stating that there was an overdue parking ticket for that license plate that was from March.
Right.
So she said, should I pay this? And I said, well, of course you don't pay it. You were never there. But we live in Berks County. It's about 80-mile round trip to Harrisburg, and we rarely ever go there. So I said, call the parking authority and find out what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So she did, and they said, well, you're going to have to call PennDOT and get proof that you sold the car. So she called PennDOT, and they said, yes, we have a form. Costs $5 to fill out the form, but that's not going to do you any good because you kept the plate. So we can't prove that you didn't put the plate on another vehicle and park it in Harrisburg.
Right.
So we said, okay, why don't you see if you can get them to send you a copy of the parking ticket so we can at least know what we're dealing with here. He said, no, we can't do that. You'll have to come up to Harrisburg and get it if you want it. So by this time now, they said, and you can't pay the ticket anyway. It's expired. You have to wait till you get a citation from the magistrate, and then there will be a fine and additional costs involved. So we just don't know how to deal with this.
So let me ask it this way. She's got a parking ticket from a car that she wasn't driving?
The car that she doesn't even own anymore.
Right, and it didn't have her license plate on it anymore.
No, the license plate's been sitting on a shelf in my house.
Right. And where's the parking ticket from?
It's from the city of Harrisburg.
Okay. So somebody parked that car in Harrisburg, and somehow they traced it back to her.
No, somebody parked a car in Harrisburg, and they must have got the wrong license number. Because that license plate is in my house. It hasn't moved.
Well, I would just take the hearing.
Okay.
Because if you come in and testify, bring the license plate along with you.
Show them that this car has been sold in December.
Yeah, show them those two things, and if I'm the judge, there's a reasonable doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the easiest way to do it. And then you get all your money back except the $5 or $7 hearing fee, which still makes no sense to me. I'm not sure how it is that an innocent person who was drug into court, the government still gets to keep the $7 fee. But for some odd reason, they figured out they can.
Well, it just seems strange that the burden of proof is on the innocent party here.
Well, the burden of proof isn't on the innocent party. But somebody's going to come in, right? Some person from Harrisburg and go, I saw a car with this license plate number on it, parked illegally. And then the judge is going to go, well, I'm not going to disbelieve the parking meter made or whatever unless I see evidence to the contrary. So, yeah, the burden kind of shifts, although the initial burden is on them to go forward.
Okay.
All right?
We'll do that.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye.
Yeah, these burden things, one of the things you got to learn as a lawyer is burdens and presumptions. Burdens and presumptions. And if you learn what are rebuttable presumptions and irrebuttable presumptions and what are the burdens of persuasion and going forward and the burdens of rebuttal and then surrebuttal and yada, yada, yada. But if you can lay all that out in a case, then you can overlay the rules of evidence with it. And then you can kind of beat up on the other side pretty good a lot of times because they probably haven't spent enough time figuring out what their burdens and what the presumptions are. And then, of course, you better bring the case law along because most of the time the judge probably isn't even aware of what most of that stuff is in a minor case or even in a major case if they haven't done one before. And worse, if they've done one before, then they're sure they know the law, and then you definitely better bring the cases in case you're going to get in an argument. But that's the duty of each side in a legal case is for the lawyers to bring the case law along and educate the court as we go because it's kind of a three-way process. By the way, I'm going to let you guys go to break here in a second, but before I do, it looks like the oligarchy, the corporate oligarchs and the Billionaires Boys Club is all putting together their new Planetary Resources company. So watch, it's going to be unveiled on April 24th. But this is an interesting time in human history. We've now got the Larry Page and Serge Brin and all these guys getting together with James Cameron and the guy from the X Prize Foundation, all putting their money together in some billion-dollar project for space exploration. So basically, I see it coming, where the big corporations are kind of taking over the governmental role of exploring space and pushing mankind out into the universe. So I think it all starts on April 24th. So watch the news. Got to go to break. Well, here we are. Let's see. What else do I want to tell you? Looks like Mr. Zimmerman is going to be released. Of course, you just heard that on Fox News, and they're fair and balanced, so it has to be true. Interestingly, they are giving his lawyers kudos for calling the investigator to the stand. And some people may say, well, why would you call the investigator to stand during a bail hearing? But one of the factors here in Pennsylvania, and I assume in Florida as well, is the strength of the case. Now, you're innocent until proven guilty, and that's a legal presumption that applies to you and applies to Mr. Zimmerman and me and you and everybody else who's in a court of law. But for purposes of bail, a judge can look at the strength of the case. So if the government has a videotape of you robbing the bank at gunpoint, that can come in as a factor at the bail hearing. Judge, there's a high probability of conviction. Look at this tape that we tend to present to the jury. On the other hand, in the Zimmerman case, they called the investigator to the stand. I think his name was Dale Gilbreth. And they asked him, who started the fight? And he said, I couldn't tell you that. And who threw the first punch? And they have no evidence. He conceded they have no evidence to disprove Zimmerman's contention that he was walking back to his vehicle when confronted by Martin. So we all know that now, and we know that's going to be a big hole in the government's case. Well, if I'm the judge setting bail, somebody died, and it's a second-degree murder case, and it's very serious, but I'm going to have grave concerns that the government can't disprove self-defense as they're required to do, and I'm going to have grave concerns that Mr. Zimmerman is not going to not win the immunity hearing, and so I've got to set the bail at something that's designed to protect his liberty interests given that information. So it sounds like not only have we got a little window into the case, And, of course, according to the Glenn Beck show and ABC News, I guess, released, and so you can see it, I think, at the Blaze, is a picture of the back of his head, which apparently shows a large amount of blood. And, of course, there's some question as to why that picture took so long to surface. Who knows? 540-0580. Bill, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl Guru. Hey,
Yeah.
2 times in my life I've called up the insurance company about a roof, and they came out. They gave me roofs, 2 different roofs, no muss, no fuss. This time I called up the insurance company, and they came out, and then they wanted to split the claim up into wind damage and then also hail damage.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's storm damage, So now they sent me a check for not a new roof, but $118, and they said we need to claim for hail damage. My question is, if this thing keeps going on, who would I appeal to outside the insurance company? And number 2, if I go to the public adjuster that you talked about one time that you brought on the show, what power does he have to do anything? Over?
Yeah, he is not a lawyer, so he doesn't go to court. What power he has, though, is he's statutorily authorized to deal with the insurance company and represent your rights, and they have to deal with him under the law. And number 2, he has the right to open up a claim that's already been deemed closed by the insurance company. So he also has a certain expertise. My experience with the public adjusters when I've sent clients to them is they will hand it back over to a lawyer if a legal question comes up. But on the factual questions, they're really who you need. So, I think that's a good idea to talk to the public adjuster.
And if I didn't do that, what would be the way to appeal it outside of the insurance company?
A lawsuit.
Like you say.
A lawsuit.
Oh, no.
You can also complain
good.
to the insurance commissioner as well.
Good. Hey, thanks. Bye.
All right, brother. Bye. 540-0580. Sarah.
Hi.
What's going on?
I was in a car accident a month ago.
Okay.
And I'm going to court in a few weeks. And if the court says it's not my fault, does that mean it falls on the other guy and his insurance has to cover everything?
The short answer is a judicial determination on a summary like that. In other words, you're given a traffic ticket, I assume.
No, a car accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they cited you with careless driving or something?
Failure to yield
Failure
the
to
right
yield.
of way.
Winning that is helpful, but it doesn't control who has to pay what between the insurance companies. That's a separate civil matter that the insurance companies will arbitrate themselves, or you have to bring an action against the other person.
Okay.
How much damage do you have to your car?
My car's totaled.
And who's fixing it? Anybody?
No.
And are you getting paid by anybody?
No.
What happened to your insurance? You didn't have collision?
I told them I want collision, but they didn't put it on my policy.
Gotcha. So you didn't have collision on your policy. So you're going to have to sue the other guy for your damages. So you're going to want to win this suit, and then you're going to want to bring a claim against the other side. What's the value of your car?
Like $3,000.
Yeah. So you got a good small claims court issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so win the traffic ticket first. By the way, if you don't win in front of the district judge, you can appeal it. You have 30 days to appeal it.
Okay.
My other recommendation is then immediately file a small claims action against the other driver for totaling your car. You believe they're truly at fault, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you can convince a judge of that and you can win a judgment.
Okay.
All right, think about getting a lawyer too.
All right, thanks.
All right, 540-0580. Margaret.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine.
What's going on?
What's going on is I had a contract for a phone and cable for 2 years, and it came up for renewal. And I contacted them because I realized I was beyond the date of renewal.
Right.
And they gave me a figure of what it was going to cost me for my new contract. And I wasn't happy with that, but we went around for about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, and finally I accepted the deal. They had told me one particular figure of what my contract would be worth, and I just got my first phone bill, phone/cable bill, and the bill is astronomical. It is not the amount that they had told me on the phone that I would be paying. They did not tell me anything about a bunch of fees that they socked on, and a bill that I was figuring was going to be about $120 turns out to be $208. What kind of legal recourse do I have? Can I tell them to take their service and shove it?
I think you could. I mean, here's the answer. We don't know what was told to you on the phone. What I mean when I say we mean anybody else besides you and the person on the other end, right?
Yeah, and here's the problem. I have no written record of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because all these darn services nowadays, you call an 800 number or you contact them via the net. You have no contract.
Right. Right. And
that
so
you could go back to.
My answer would be you can certainly cancel this. Well, I would call them up and say, I thought it was supposed to be this. And if they say, well, we can't adjust it to that, then you say, well, then I don't want the service. Now, here's the next question. I mean, what do you switch to then? I don't know.
Well, when we were doing all of this, I still had services paid up through like the 13th or 14th of April.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I no longer have those paid up services. So if I tell them to take this and you know what, they could technically pull the plug and I have no phone, I have no cable. I'm stuck with nothing.
So what you need to do is put your alternative plan B system in place and then cancel with them and then fight it out with them if they're going to claim you can't cancel. You'll discover that if most people don't realize this, but if you actually fight these big companies, and the easiest way to do it is to actually sue them, like in small claims court and get them actually served. They would rather just let you go than actually come and defend the claim most of the time. But it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts. Now, whether you could sue them in some class action or not, well, you got to find a class action and got to get somebody excited about one. And all these contracts now include these arbitration clauses, which U.S. Supreme Court held up and says, yes, you can be stuck in these really unfair arbitration positions where you really could never persuade a lawyer to take your case, et cetera, et cetera. So my advice is tell them to stuff it and find something else to go with or live with the fact that it's more than you thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Okay, thank you.
All right, wish I had better advice than that. 540-0580. Jody, how are you?
Good afternoon, counselor.
What's going on?
My daughter will be emancipated, so I received documents from domestic relations.
Okay.
And I have never gone back for an increase in the 18 years, so it's been very amicable between her father and I. My question is, I do have a 13-year-old also. Will they automatically just review that, or do I need to request that separately?
I would request a separate. I would just make sure they're going to review it. If you want it reviewed, I would just throw that request in just to be safe.
Okay, because I thought I could kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah, and you might be able to, but like I say, I would just throw in that if while you're doing that, could we have a review of this?
Okay.
And I would do that ahead of time so that they know. That way, nobody claims surprise.
Good. And just one other question. My brother is going through a very combative divorce, and they both are represented by counsel, but his spouse has written a very scathing 2-page letter directly to the judge,
right,
bypassing counsel. What happens when she does that?
Well, what happens is the judge will not read that letter. The judge will send that letter back to the lawyer of the party who sent it, usually, as well as copying it to the other lawyer. And frankly, the judge never sees it because judges don't open their own mail. And one of the safety valves they have is their secretaries know that parties that do what we call an ex parte or a pro se ex parte, in this case, communication to the judge, they just go ahead and administratively send it out to everybody with a letter from the judge. So the judge basically says, here's your letter. I'm not considering it. But the point is it's not very persuasive. And in fact, it actually hurts those parties sometimes more, I think, than it helps them if the judge figures out that they're trying to circumvent the normal course of justice.
Right. It was pretty scary. My brother was just a little worried.
Right. But I'm telling you, I'm guaranteed. I say I shouldn't guarantee. There was probably some judge out there somewhere that actually reads those things. But every judge I know, this doesn't make it past the secretary. And that way the judge can plausibly say later, right? I don't know what it said. I don't read them. Same thing with pro se prisoner letters a lot of times.
Good.
They just copy
them. I'll put my brother's mind at ease.
Yeah, tell them basically, and tell them to the extent that they did it, it's not helpful. it really isn't helpful. It can only really hurt you as a litigant. So anybody out there listening, if you're compelled to write to the judge and you have a lawyer, or even if you don't have a lawyer and you're compelled to write, writing letters to the judge is never a good idea.
Thank you. That's what I thought, too. It's like swaying the jury in my mind.
Exactly. No, trust me, they don't read it. I got to go to break.
Thank you.
See you in a minute. Well, what was yesterday? It was 420, right? Shane wasn't at work yesterday, so I don't know what that means. He's laughing in there. I'm waiting for the bubbling sounds of his cannabis over there. Actually, it's interesting because the war on drugs is much talked about, and I'm not a big pro-marijuana guy per se, but I do find it interesting because economists, and I agree with them, tend to point out that making drugs illegal has only helped spawn the criminal enterprise as much as Prohibition did for the mob with alcohol back in the day. And I think one of the economists back in the day took on Bill Bennett under Reagan to say that the war on drugs would only make the drug problem worse, and I think they're only being proven right. And then another interesting little factoid is that Progressive Insurance, who the guy behind the billionaire behind it, Peter Lewis, is behind, and he's given almost every dollar, like $500,000, to get signatures to get a legalization of marijuana in the Massachusetts ballot. So interesting, a billionaire there spending his money on something. And I think part of the theory is legalizing marijuana would help dry up the drug market as it now stands. So it'd be interesting to see. Actually, that's two things: to crack down on marijuana in the United States and drugs in general, and then also, and of course, meth, which is terrible, but they ran around and made it very hard to buy the raw products to make it here in the United States, have pushed the Mexican economy in the direction of drugs. And from what I've heard, Afghanistan is still growing poppies left and right. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do think it's interesting. And the Latin American countries, a lot of them are now legalizing small amounts of drugs and drug use, again, to try to suck the money out of the drug empires. Because the demand is inelastic, meaning that users tend not to stop using just because the price goes up. The more interdiction you have and the less competition there is, the more the prices go up, the more money there is for the drug kingpins to use. And therefore, it's kind of a losing battle. So while maybe in theory it's a good idea to stop the flow of drugs, it actually may increase the reward for getting into them, which again sort of just cycles the supply back up. Dora, you're on the air.
Yes, Carl, regarding that gentleman that got a ticket, at any rate.
Dora, hold on. I forgot about Dan Steele. Dan, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I'm enjoying the show, man. You're doing a great job.
We're talking about marijuana plants. I don't think they have them where you're at, but they do have other plants.
So. But they got every other kind of plant you could think of for sure, and pretty much everything is on sale. It's Dan Steele. We're over here at Stouffer's at Kissel Hill. I just saw R.J. Harris and Bonnie. They're on a mission. He didn't want to stop and talk because they got a bunch of stuff to get. But at any rate, we're going to be here for just a few more minutes. But I'm standing right underneath this beautiful 12 by 12 garden pavilion they've got set up inside. In fact, they've got all kinds of patio furniture on display where we are, because they've got a big sale going on patio furniture. There's virtually a sale on everything in the store. It's part of their 80th anniversary. $8,000 giveaway, by the way, is going on. You can register to win a wagon load of winnings. This all ends on Tuesday, okay? So you're running out of time. It's a great day to get out and work in the dirt and plant some stuff. So just stop by and say hi. I've had so many people come by. There's Leo Gallagher. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Welcome to Stouffer's at Kissel Hill. Come on over and take advantage of the sales and say hi while I'm still here. We do appreciate your business. Stouffer's got great deals going on all over the store, all right? It's Dan Steele. We're live on WHP 580.
Thanks, Dan. All right, guys. Sorry about that. Dora, I'm so sorry about that. We forgot about Dan out there, and I had to get him.
That's fine. I'm sold. I'll head out to my Stouffer's.
No. I bought some irrigation equipment out there a couple of years ago, and I really liked it. It's a little dig kit that you plug together.
I just came home with a bunch of flowers and plants. Hey, listen, regarding that ticket that was unwarranted.
Yes.
In 2001, my daughter had a young baby. She lived in Maryland, and I was over there. I lived over there for practically a year. At any rate, one day I got a ticket. My husband got a ticket in the mail here for my car, Chrysler, for parking in front of the Art Museum in Philadelphia. I hadn't been in Philadelphia in years. But here was this ticket. Well, my way of dealing with it was I can write a pretty sharp-tongued letter, and that's what I did. I explained the whole thing, and as I recall, I don't think we got any further noise regarding that. So if you have all the facts before you write it down, send it off. I think it's a scam, and I think it's corruption.
Well, maybe they're trying to get money to pay for the incinerator.
Oh, Lord, they're trying to get money no matter what, by whatever means. It sounds like a communist manifesto, doesn't it? Whatever means necessary.
Well, you know, and that whole that's that. I don't even want to get into the Harrisburg fiasco over there.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. Imbroglio.
Yeah. All right, you take care. Thank you very much.
At any rate, if you get a ticket that's unwarranted, don't pay it.
No. If nothing else, I always take the hearing too.
Yeah.
All right, you take care.
You too.
All right, bye. That was Dora the Explorer. Jeff, you're on the air.
Hello, Carl.
What's going on?
Yes, Jeff Walsh, Walsh's Lawn and Landscaping. I'm listening to my favorite talk show.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. A question regarding that woman that they're trying to hike her cable/telephone bill.
Yeah.
Now, normally, you will hear a recording when you're doing transactions like this, that the recording may be recorded due to quality control or customer satisfaction or something to that.
Correct.
That being said, the burden of proof, I would think, would draw on the cable company as long as they keep the tapes. You know how things work sometimes, but I would think that might be a good suggestion. You had very good advice for the lady, and best of luck to her. Now, I'm not an attorney, although my good friends next door where I live, Nathan and Stacy Wolf, are in Carlisle. I'm sure you're aware of them and them of you.
They're good friends of mine, yeah.
Yeah, so I get some good legal advice from them now.
Listen, you make sure you get as much free legal advice off of Nate as you can. That's my mantra.
Oh, I do. He's a card.
The other thing, he actually was on the show maybe about a year ago. Actually came on and talked to us about land use and how to block the warehouses and all that good stuff.
I know that's another issue he and I hashed out because we did have a conflict of interest, although it was not known to him at the time, but now it is. So.
Well, I'm in favor of construction. I told Nate that we could work this out. He can take the anti-construction side, and I'm going to take I'm in favor of monster warehouses and plundering of land side because I like to see development and jobs.
Very good. I do too. I'm in lawn and landscaping, but we're mostly residential, some commercial. So but I was involved in the Sparks deal. I know what we're talking about. So that's water under the bridge. That's settled and everything. So thanks for your help on that. I hope the lady's listening, and I hope it's some helpful advice.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting because I do know what you're talking about, those recordings, and I have a feeling they're going to go, oh, well, we only retain those for 30 days, and we just use them for... But there is an inference that can be drawn that she would believe that recording would be available, and the fact that they've disposed of it may be an inference that you can convince the fact finder with.
Exactly.
All right, my friend.
You're doing your homework. That's why we're on the air. Okay, well, thanks a lot for your time, and I'll run into you sometime. Maybe a watering hole, who knows?
Yeah. Well, you know me, I never drink, so.
Good. Okay.
I'm the only lawyer in all of Pennsylvania that doesn't drink. I got to go into break here. Hey, we got another hour of the show. We're going to be live. We're going to be talking about the legalization of marijuana in the next hour, of course, because of 420 being yesterday and Shane being such a big proponent of it. What are you laughing at, JC? JC's laughing, but you know what? We all know where JC falls on this issue. Oh, I got 10 seconds, 8 seconds, 7 seconds. All right, we'll see you guys in a few minutes, and stop by RomingerLaw.com in the meantime.